All righty, letting everyone into the room. Look at those happy book lovers entering. We're very pleased to be with you tonight for our latest rendition of A Word with Writers. This is our fundraiser for the Albuquerque Public Library Foundation. We've done, I don't know, maybe a dozen of these now since 2012. We've had George R. Martin, we've had Diana Gabaldon, we've had Isabel Allende, Mira Jacob, on and on. Fabulous, fabulous writers. And in fact, we've hosted Kirsten Valdezquade for one of these fundraisers before for her book, Night at the Fiestas. I don't know if you all have read that one, but if you haven't, you must get a copy. It's in paperback now, and it's a wonderful, wonderful short story collection, also set in our beloved northern New Mexico. So welcome, everyone. My name is Amanda Sutton. I'm the Events and Marketing Director for Bookworks, your 36-year-old independent bookstore. We're down in the Rio Grande River Valley of North Albuquerque, currently still closed for browsing. We are playing it super safe with the pandemic, so we are still offering curbside service. We're doing that 4 days a week. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 10 to 2, and on Wednesday evening from 2 to 6 p.m. You can come pick up your book, The 5 Wounds, at Bookworks this week. You can also have it shipped to you. Check out our website. It's Bookworks without the O's, BKWRKS.com. I'm going to write a little chant or a little jingle with that one of these days. But yes, it's our name without the O's. You can find this book, you can find bestsellers, new releases, kids stuff, on and on. So many good selections there. So again, if you're just joining us, we are hosting Kirstin Valdezquade for her new novel, The 5 Wounds, from one of my absolute favorite publishers, W.W. Norton, one of the few independent publishers left out there, folks. So be sure to check out her book and other offerings from Norton. Okay, tonight, Kirsten is going to be in conversation with one of my favorite colleagues, Ms. Deborah Green. And Deb is herself a writer, a former geologist, well, still a geologist, just not maybe out in the field so much, but she lectures widely on geology. She's written some books that she is working on getting published, and she's a bookseller at Bookworks. Most importantly, she has read The 5 Wounds, loves it, and is going to be talking with Miss Quade about that book tonight. Kirstin Valdezquade is the author of Night at the Fiestas, the short story collection I mentioned previously. And she's also the author of the new novel, The 5 Wounds. She grew up in northern New Mexico part of her life. She worked at Collected Works Bookstore, one of our favorite Santa Fe locations. And now she teaches at the illustrious Princeton University. So ladies, I am going to let you take it away and talk about the book. At the end, we will do our usual question and answer. So if you have a question that comes up for you at any point, you can type that into the chat, or I can call on you at the end. So Deb, thanks so much for talking with Kirsten. I'll let you get to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think I can speak for our whole Bookworks team when I tell you how much we miss you and how grateful we are for all your support during this really difficult year. And our owners are going to be making an announcement soon, probably in the next few days, about reopening for limited browsing. So stay tuned, everyone, for that. Can't wait to see you all in person. So Amanda did a wonderful introduction of Kirsten, and I'm just going to say one thing, which is that she's a native New Mexican, and she has said that our wonderful landscape and culture is, quote, some of the primary fuel of her stories. And so without further delay, I want to welcome Kirstin Valdezquade here to our virtual Bookworks event. And Kirstin, I'd like to open the conversation by just talking a little bit about this novel grew out of a short story of the same title, The Five Wounds, that was published in the New Yorker in 2009. And it's also one of the stories in your collection, Night at the Fiestas. And can you start us off by telling us a bit about what led you to write that story in the first place, and why and how you took on expanding it into this really beautiful novel?
Sure, yes. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for being here and for supporting the Albuquerque Public Libraries. And I'm just so delighted to be back at Bookworks, even if it has to be virtual. It was such a wonderful, wonderful bookstore, and I really love it. So thank you so much. And it's just a joy to be, again, even virtually, in the city of my birth. I wish so much it were in person. So yes, the novel grew out of one of the short stories in my collection. The Five Wounds, the story is set in a fictional New Mexico town, and it centers on the Padilla family, and in particular, three members of the family. There's Amadeo, who's an unemployed alcoholic, and he lives with his mother Yolanda, and he's also a penitente, and the story begins during Holy Week, and he has been chosen to play the role of Jesus in the procession, and he is convinced that this will change his life. He's trying to do the best possible job, and everything is derailed when his 16-year-old teenage daughter, 15-year-old at that moment, teenage daughter shows up unannounced and pregnant, and announces that she's moving in with him. So at the end of the short story, Amadeo, who misses the point a bit, and he's so determined to change his life, and he gets very extreme, and he asks for real nails to be used in the reenactment of the crucifixion. And in the very last moments of the story, he has this epiphany where he sees his daughter, and he finally actually sees her and sees her need and understands his responsibility toward her. And the story ends with that new knowledge, that epiphany. And I think what I found, my editor asked me if I would ever consider extending it into a novel, and I immediately said, absolutely not. I am writing short stories, and I, so I said it nicely, but basically I said, leave me alone. I'm not going to write that novel. But then a couple years later, I was looking at some unfinished story drafts, and I noticed that they all dealt with the same basic constellation of characters. There was Yolanda and a mother and her sort of codependent son, and then his estranged daughter. And that dynamic kept coming up. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I actually am writing a novel. I'm still clearly very interested in these characters, and they didn't really leave me alone. And I think the question that arose for me is, okay, if the story ends with Amadeo's epiphany, what happens next? What happens the next morning? What happens, later on that afternoon? Is that epiphany enough? And I began to suspect that it may not be enough. I think many of us, I certainly, need many epiphanies, epiphany after epiphany after epiphany, in order to actually make changes. I mean, it's hard to change your life. So that was where the novel grew from.
That is fascinating. And isn't that interesting that you were sure you were done, and the characters let you know that you weren't quite finished with them. And with that, will you read some from that next morning, that next afternoon, the after Amadeus Epiphany for us?
Absolutely. So this scene takes place immediately after. In the crowded ER, Angel sits beside him in cold silence, flipping angrily through a ragged parenting magazine, while Amadeo cradles his hands in his lap, marveling at the bright stickiness of his own blood soaking the towels. The doctors are taking forever. He's been sitting under the fluorescent lights in this plastic chair bolted to the floor, leaning forward so as to protect his tender back for nearly 2 hours. Through the automatic doors, the sky is already pink. "Hey," he tells a nurse rushing past in scrubs printed with Easter eggs. "How long's it going to be? Because this is really serious." He indicates his hands, but the nurse regards him with only the barest tightening flicker around her mouth, then rushes on, consulting her clipboard. Most of these people don't even seem sick. Not a single other person is losing blood. Where are the gunshot wounds, the heart attacks, the massive head injuries? Where is the carnage? Would someone please show him a single emergency greater than his own that might explain this unconscionable weight? He's Jesus, for Christ's sake. "Whoa," he tells Angel. "I'm feeling really lightheaded." But she doesn't even glance at him. Across from them, a woman scrolls through her phone. Her young daughter, 7, 8, swings her feet restlessly, and a rhinestone-studded flip-flop drops to the teal epoxy floor. With both hands, she grips a bag of cherry cough drops. Her eyes are wide and fixed on his bloody towel. "Are you sick?" he asks the girl as nicely as he can, trying to rein in his annoyance. The girl raises her eyes from the gore in his lap with some reluctance. Her hair is ratty, and she wears a pilled yellow pajama top. "I might have foot and mouth disease," she says. The mother looks up warily from her phone. "Maybe I could go before you then?" Amadeo raises his swaddled hand, shrugging regretfully. "I'm bleeding out." "We've been here 3 hours, the woman says, voice flat, and she returns to her phone. "You are not bleeding out," says Angel, louder and meaner than necessary. But what does she know? Angel is a high school dropout, not a doctor. People die all the time from slit wrists, and the palm is basically the wrist. He moves in his chair and gasps when the bandage on his back shifts. After the second nail, the hermanos helped him right down and gave him water, offering their congratulations. At first his hands didn't even hurt, his feet did, from clinging to the block on the cross. Al Martinez had bandaged him up gently. "Keep pressure here and here," he said, his voice low. "You did good, son." Still, the man is no professional, and Amadeo can already feel the medical tape coming unstuck. To Amadeo's surprise, Tio Tive didn't show any of the kindness of the others, didn't even seem proud. And the old man didn't call him an ambulance either, just got one of the hermanos who lives in Espanola to drop them at the hospital. "Nail gun," Tio Tive warned. "You got in the way of a nail gun." "Anyway," says Angel, turning the page of her magazine, "it would serve you right if you did bleed out." He looks at her, disbelieving. "Hey, come on. What a thing to say. Where did that come from?" All of a sudden, he remembers that today is Angel's birthday. 16. She didn't mention it this morning. He wonders if she forgot or if she wanted the day to be his. "Listen, Angel, I'm sorry you had to be in the emergency room on your birthday. I apologize. Is that your problem? Is that what's bugging you, that you're not getting the attention? Listen, I wouldn't have asked you to come if it wasn't an emergency. I'm wounded." Angel says nothing. Thank God she'll have the baby soon, Amadeo thinks, because he's not sure how much more he can take of these moods. "Did you see the whole thing?" he asks in an undertone. He wishes he'd had her take pictures, but, he reflects, that wouldn't have been in the spirit of the occasion. Still, he wishes there was a record of his success. Angel riffles through the magazine too fast to be reading anything. Amadeo watches the article titles as she flips past. "Oral fixation. Take along snacks your child will love." "I feel you. Raising empathetic children." Amadeo taps this last article, and Angel pauses her frenetic page turning. "Hey, that one looks good. Wish I'd known about raising empathetic children." Angel gives him a shriveling, disgusted look. "You got to be joking me." He turns away from her and looks instead at the television mounted in the corner. Cable news plays too loud. A cruise ship has lost power and is floating free in the Caribbean. The toilets have flooded and the king shrimp have gone off. Big deal, thinks Amadeo. So they get a longer cruise. So they eat Fritos. It's not like they're facing a medical situation. It's not like there is blood involved. Amadeo hurts much worse than after the cutting of the seos on Ash Wednesday, worse than after those lashes. Earlier on Calvario, he seemed to have risen to some heightened space that pain didn't penetrate. He was cloaked in grace, he supposes. But now he really, truly hurts. An angel is giving him neither the praise nor the sympathy that he deserves. The pain clusters in his palms, shimmering, ever-changing. He wants suddenly to put his daughter in her place. Don't you even got a boyfriend? Angel turns and looks at him like he's stupid. What do you think? Didn't your mom never teach you not to sleep around? All of the girls in my parenting class, she says, not one of them has a guy that matters. Not one. You think you mattered? You shouldn't have come, he says. You think you have a right to just barge into my house and make yourself at home. Angel's eyes widen and then she narrows them. It's my grandmother's house. You don't have a house. She turns back to her magazine. At long last, the girl and her mother are called. Amadeo looks at them piteously, and the girl looks back with interest. But the mother gathers their things and walks away, refusing eye contact. Hey, he says, ready to reconcile. Why are you so mad at me? I did good today. Angel finally sets the magazine on her lap and turns to him. So, she says deliberately, tell me, what was that? You never said anything about actual nails. You never said anything about actually getting crucified. What good is that to anyone? Her words are like a slap. What's it to you, Angel? Her voice thickens and lowers. In 3 weeks I'm due, 3 fucking weeks. She turns and looks away. Her eyes rest unseeing on the television. For a moment, Amadeo thinks Angel is going to cry. When she turns back, however, her eyes are dry, her face splotchy, gaze shuttered. Very quietly, so quietly he has to lean toward her to hear, Angel says, how are you going to hold the baby? Or didn't you even think of that? So that's the scene that comes next.
Unmute.
You're good now, Deb.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I heard some dinner preparation downstairs, so I muted for the reading. That is so, oh my God, a few pages really speaks volumes about Amadeo and Angel and their relationship, and if I can be presumptuous, how clueless he can be. So for me, I was pulled in immediately and completely by your characters. Those I loved and the ones I didn't as well. And they feel for me at once very particularly themselves, but also really universal. You know, what family doesn't have a black sheep that someone is enabling over and over and over? So I think it's just amazing how you did that, how you had them so very themselves and yet so universal. And I think what I would ask you to do is, and I'll give you your choice. We talked about one other section that sort of elaborates on some of the characters. And you can either read that now or talk a little bit about the characters first and then move into that part of the reading.
Sure. So I think one of the things that I was really interested in when I set off to write a novel and to explore this family more is what the experiences of the other family members are. This novel has 4 point of view characters. It's Amadeo, who's the point of view character of the story, and his daughter Angel, his mother Yolanda, and Brianna, who's the teacher of the teen parenting program that Angel attends. And, you know, I think one of the things I love just as a person in the world is to when I'm at a family gathering or any gathering, but really with my family, is to try to imagine what everybody is experiencing. We're all at the same dinner table, but what, every single person around that table has a different story. And so that was a fun thing to explore in the novel. Did you want me to read that scene at Easter dinner, or the beginning of that?
Yeah, that would be great. I think that, the timing would be lovely. And I think that is so true. I don't know about, I bet everybody sitting here today could say that they have a sibling who was raised in the same household, but had completely different experiences of their growing up. So yeah,
Yeah, it's so funny the way that works. I mean, I have a brother and a sister, and there is a big gap between each of us, but it's amazing. It's like each of us grew up in a completely different family.
yeah, I know. It's so interesting, and it's so ripe for exploring, and stories that way. And so, yeah, so let's move into that reading about the siblings.
Okay, so this is Easter dinner, the very beginning. Amadeo's sister apparently doesn't notice that he isn't speaking to her, and hasn't since her obnoxious gift last Christmas. When Valerie comes in, her arms filled with bulging shopping bags tearing at the sides, the first thing she does is drop it all and hug him before he can dodge. Still gripping his arm, she steps back and takes him in. He almost can't look at her, the absurdly long hair hanging loose, the oversized earrings, her draping black dress, the ambiguously ethnic scarf. And that superior, forbearing expression, as if she's willing to humor him, but only up to a point. "It's good to see you, little brother." Amadeo nods coolly, but she misses it because she's already turned to Angel. "Oh my God, Angelica, let me see you. You're enormous." Angel ducks her head, pleased and a little shy. "Hey, Aunt Val." Valerie hugs her, then crosses the living room to switch off the television. 2 years ago, Valerie got rid of her TV. If she's not making a big show of ignorance whenever someone mentions The Bachelor or a piece of celebrity gossip, then she's going on about some project one of the girls has done with the endless stores of time and intellect and creativity endemic to television-free households. "I don't know how you guys can hear yourselves think with that thing going all the time," she says, dusting off her hands. Armed with a brand new master's degree, Valerie is now a counselor in the Albuquerque public school system and is therefore an expert on everything. She took night and weekend classes for 3 years, and for 3 years she swanned around, sighing and rubbing her temples, talking about how overworked she was. Full-time job, full-time school, full-time single mom. She tosses around theories and diagnoses, pressing her lips. She says, nodding knowingly. Aha. She has the maddening tendency to read into even the most banal comments. If, for example, Amadeo says he wanted to kill the lady with the 600 coupons in front of him at the checkout, Valerie's eyebrows will pinch in concern. "Are you having urges to hurt other people, Dodo?" Amadeo's theory, and God knows he's no school counselor, is that Valerie never got over his birth, which means she spent all but 5 years of her life resentful. Only 3 things make Valerie bearable. First, she's gotten fat and she's self-conscious about it. Second, she was hit by her ex-husband, which makes her skittish around any displays of masculine strength. So Amadeo need only flex his fist or massage a bicep to disconcert her. Third, her kids are pretty cute. Or they used to be. Now that she's 12, Lily acts just as superior as her mom. She reads far beyond her grade level, no surprise given her glasses and frizzy mop of hair. She and her little sister are still standing in the doorway, the screen propped open against their bottoms, staring solemnly at his beer and his bandaged hands, as if they're afraid to step all the way into the house with Amadeo there. Uncle Amadeo, erratic, mean drunk. He can imagine what Valerie tells them. Watch out for Uncle Amadeo. Never get in a car with Uncle Amadeo. Whatever you do, don't end up like Uncle Amadeo. Before he can help himself, he is making a nasty face at them, mouth wide, tongue nearly to his chin. "Ah!" he snarls, raspy and sudden. Lily flinches, then regains her composure and rolls her eyes behind her glasses. But Sarah, the 7-year-old, breaks into a delighted gap-toothed laugh. She's an adorable child, large-eyed, with a sweet black bob, skinny legs poking out of soccer shorts. Amadeo grins back, his irritation transformed into affection for this niece who is, it seems, still too young to despise him. So that's a little bit of the family gathering.
I just, if only being frizzy and having glasses made you really smart, I'd be all set. And for those of you who are wondering, the Christmas gift that Valerie gave Dodo, I love that nickname, is a hardback book called Mastering Aries, Breaking Free from the Prison of Male Rage, which is why he is not speaking to her. And when he was cranky about it with Yolanda, his mom, her comment was, "Yeah, that's not a great present," she conceded when he cornered her in the kitchen. And he had for a moment felt vindicated until she paused and said, "It's maybe worth thinking about, though." So, so it's just, I think the development of the characters and the family, there's so much richness in that, and the relationships within the family itself and within the wider community, like with Brianna and the girls and the school that they're in. And this is a school for all teenage, either pregnant to-be mothers or very young mothers who are in this special program so that they can continue their schooling. So do you want to talk any more about the characters as you develop them? I know as a writer, to make characters leap off the page like you do, I'm so incredibly envious. Can you speak a little bit about, how you make them come alive like you do, and your concerns, for them and about them and their interior lives, about love and sexuality and growing up, whether you're a kid or an adult? Is there anything you could speak to about all those things?
Well, thank you for saying that the characters do feel alive. That's every writer's great hope. I lived with these characters for a really long time. They were with me for years and years. So, as I wrote and rewrote and took wrong turns in the drafting process, I was constantly learning more about them. They were revealing themselves to me. And I think it can sound goofy when writers say that characters reveal themselves, because obviously, we do make them up. But there is something sort of magical that happens, that I feel like my job as a writer is to pay attention to them. And if I'm paying attention, then they surprise me. They show me who they are, and often I'm surprised. I was surprised, for example, Angel is in teen parent program, Smart Starts, as you mentioned, Deb, and she falls in love with one of her peers, her classmates in the program, and that came as a surprise to me. I think it came as a surprise to her too. I don't think she fully understands what's happening as those feelings develop. So, yeah, I guess the answer really is that I'm discovering the story along with them. I'm not a writer who has an outline and can fill it in. I wish I were, because I'd be so much more efficient and this wouldn't be my second book. But my method is really inefficient, but I just have to, discover things as my characters do.
Well, I think whatever you're doing with respect to making the characters feel so real and so multidimensional, and like I could walk down the street in Espanola and run into any of them. I think you're spot on personally, and I know what you mean. I remember the first writing class maybe one of the very first ones I went to, where they talked about how you have to listen to your characters, and I was like, what? And I didn't get it for years until I was developing a character who I did not want this character, who was based on someone in my life. I did not want him to be a pilot. I did not want him in a small plane. I didn't want to get into a small plane. I didn't want to have to explore that. And so I was like, okay, this character is not going to be a pilot. And then I wrote a scene where he was a boy and he was flying a kite, and he was just in love with the lift. And for the first time in my life, I got, as a writer, it's like, oh, this character is telling me it's not up to me whether he flies or not. He has to fly. And so I think it's very real when the characters reveal themselves in that way. And I think that's why your characters do leap off the page. And it's yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, sometimes it's really challenging. Amadeo, when I was revising the story, The Five Wounds, that was in my collection, I workshopped it in my first graduate school workshop, and it was pretty polished. I'd written it a few months earlier, and I'd gone over and over and over it. So it was a clean copy that I turned in. And my mentor, my advisor, Ehud Havazela, who's a wonderful writer, said, "You're not getting deep enough. You don't know Amadeo well enough. You're not getting deep enough." And I went back and I was like, what does that even mean? How do I get deeper? I don't know how. And really the problem is that I was judging Amadeo. I wanted him to learn his lesson. I thought it was terrible that he'd abandoned his daughter, and I wanted him to get his comeuppance. And so the story didn't work because I wasn't completely in his character. I was sort of floating above him and judging, and that was my task to and it was an empathetic challenge. I mean, it was sort of it wasn't a problem of craft, although it seemed like that. It was a problem of my empathy being too limited, and so that's what I had to work on in order to make the story work.
I think that those are such wise words, and it's a challenge for a character that is not completely sympathetic and has some real issues. It's hard for us not to judge that, and I think especially when we're writing it, because we're the ones in control and can give them their comeuppance. But I think, like you said, it doesn't come authentically. Then it feels like we're forcing that part of the story. It's not unfolding naturally, and you can tell that. So at least I think as a reader we can. So I'm paying attention to the time here because I want to make sure that we have time for question and answers. So I'm going to ask you, this is the question that I have. So if you could whisper in your readers' ears, which you can, because here we are waiting eagerly for it. If you could whisper in our ears, what would you want to say to us? What do you most want us to take from the Five Wounds?
I guess what I most hope for is that readers will be rooting for my characters, that even when they're difficult and, maybe not being their best selves, that I hope that readers are on the side of the characters, and I hope readers laugh and are moved by it. I guess that's my biggest hope, and entertained. I mean, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I can tell you that I got to read the advanced reader copy a couple of months ago, and I got about 3 nights very short sleep because my my novel reading time is before bed, and I kept turning the pages and going, just one more chapter. So although, like many of us, when I finished the book, I was a little sad that it was over, but at least I could get a full night's sleep again. It's such a wonderful read. I think you all will love it. And one more quick question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, and that is, what can we look forward to next from you?
Well, I am back to writing short stories right now. I had this idea for a novel, and when I was working on The Five Wounds, I thought, God, that would be such a more fun project. Why am I writing this? And I can't wait until I'm done and I can write this new novel. And then I finished, and somehow it doesn't seem quite as sexy as it did when before. So yeah, I'm back to short stories.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be looking for the next collection or wherever they're going to be. So thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you. And Amanda, I'm going to turn it back over to you now.